Last week, we made this huge iron farm decoration. As is, it stands over 246 blocks tall. That's almost the max build height in 1.17. And it's over 313 blocks at its widest. It's one of the largest builds I've ever made, but it's not quite finished. What's nice about making these videos week by week,
Feel free to subscribe to see a new video every Monday.
is I can see the feedback on every build in every video. And last video we had quite a bit of feedback, which I appreciate more than you know. I had a few ideas on how to improve this build, but y'all had some honestly better ones. So in this video, we're going to put our collective heads together and try to implement a few of our build ideas. The first comment isn't as much a suggestion as it is a statement, but No Name Kodum said that the banners look like smiley faces, and I mean, I removed it later, but holy smokes, you are completely right, and I'm never gonna be able to unsee that, but thanks for pointing that out, man. The next thing that I added in my renovations were these little gardens in the front of each wall on top of each anvil. It seemed a little empty, and to keep in line with the poppy farm that we have on top of the build, I decided to add some poppies and rose bushes in each of these little garden plots to kind of tie in together the poppy theme throughout the build. A viewer named Benjamin, thank you Ben, offered a large variety of suggestions, many of which I thought were completely valid, but the one that stuck out the most to me was this large wall in the middle was slightly underwhelming and could use some ornamentation. And I completely agree. So alongside the suggestion from John Doe to have the red and green theme more prominent in the build, I decided to add some large green windows to the front of the facade, much like the ones that we had on the sides above the anvils. Due to the curved nature of the wall, the logistics of keeping these windows evenly spaced and in similar proportions was mildly challenging, but I thought that the end aesthetic was definitely worth the hassle. I also wanted the height of the windows to complement the arch above, so I scaled the windows from shorter on the sides to taller towards the middle. Benjamin also mentioned a stained glass window or something like an iron golem bursting through the wall, so I decided to add a bit more height in the form of a large arch in the middle. There are a lot of different methods for making an arch like this. One way is making a large sphere and shaving off the sides like I did for the basalt farm portal, but in this case I created the shape I wanted on the floor, or rather floating in the air. Then I selected the region, and using world edit I typed / rotate 0090, which flipped the selection 90 degrees vertical. Afterwards, it was just a matter of fitting the new selection into the build and extending the wall upwards to meet the new arch. After doing so, I carved a large hole out of the middle of the wall to fit in the stained glass window. Now I played with a lot of variations of this window, and while I originally planned for a rose window, if you don't know what that is, I encourage you to look it up, I tried to make a 2-layered stained glass window that showed off the Wavetech logo, since I had to remove it earlier to make space for what you see here. Also, because the day of recording this audio, it's Wavetech's 2-year anniversary, which is super cool, by the way. I've been playing on the server for about 6 months, and it's honestly been the best time I've had playing Minecraft since I started playing back in 2009, so I'm pretty grateful for the lads for being so welcoming and making the past few months some pretty good ones, if I do say so myself. Anyways, back to the build. I eventually decided to remove the window because it wasn't turning out exactly as I planned. In its place, I made a large red wool panel that I shaded with some red concrete, and decided, why not? I'll try out Benjamin's idea to make an iron golem head. It didn't turn out horribly, but I'm not completely sold on its aesthetic, so it'll probably be replaced with something. But I think it needs some more work, so please feel free to offer more suggestions on what could end up here. The next thing I did was fix a little mistake that had been bothering me ever since I noticed it while editing last week's video. I finally swapped around the I and the B on these banners, and holy smokes, I just scratched that little itch in the back of my brain. I'm so glad that I actually remembered to do this. The next part of the build I revisited should serve as a cautionary tale. See, when building large structures like this, you're often prone to making mistakes. Mismeasuring lengths, not spawn proofing correctly, or in my case, listening to fellow Wavetech member Ruthro. Sorry, buddy. Okay, listen. He had a fantastic idea. I just realized that I would need to put in serious elbow grease to make it look good. His idea was to make the anvils the build sits on more realistic by basing them off of real-life anvils. That means reshaping the entire pedestal by adding a bisque, a throat, and a hanging end. Yes, they're actually called a bisque, a throat, and a hanging end. You can't make this up. Well, somebody made it up at some point. Anyways. And I tried to make it happen, I really did, but a couple things held me back. Firstly, finding a good reference image that was close enough to what I had already established so I could ensure a smooth transition. Due to this, the hanging end was very small, barely adding a little lip to the edge. The lip I actually sorta liked, and I might add some slight ornamentation to the final anvil, but holy smokes, when I say the Bic gave me a headache. There are commands in World Edit that could make such a weird shape, but not any commands I know could manage it, so I had to go at it by hand. I also didn't want to make the Bic too long, because I was doing it by hand, and I wanted the build to still fit right in the perimeter, so it turned out into this short, stubby mess. This is actually a rare example where I cut off the whole operation halfway through, leaving only the top half, because I got so perturbed by this task. You're welcome to leave your thoughts down below, but I think this build might be safer with texturing the anvil, and maybe adding some slight ornamentation, but what I made here is unforgivable. Along with suggesting I add more red and green to spice up the build, John Doe thought that while dome equals cool, dome does not equal fitting. I agree. However, I was conflicted in how to make it fit in more. See, I wanted to keep the iron aspect of the build because the decoration houses an iron farm, but I wasn't sure what to add to make it more appealing and less blank iron blocks. While I'd appreciate comments suggesting on how to improve the dome, I began building ribs for the dome to add some depth to the build. An interesting thing to note is Random and Truly built this farm an even amount of blocks long, and an odd amount of blocks wide. This meant that the deco center is actually a 2x1. Something I noticed when it was far too late to change. That's about the only interesting thing to add about the dome, because after building the ribbed structure, I decided to let it rest until I had a better idea of how to improve its aesthetic. Here we are in the world as is, with all the changes we made. You might have noticed that I took away the iron golem head. If you miss it too much, don't worry, he's right down there. Hey buddy. But as you can see, we still have all of our other changes. I think that the poppies and roses are easily palatable. I like that a lot. I think texturing the anvil back to how it was in the original iron deco is a good move. I just don't like this. I don't like it at all. Or rather, I don't like my attempt on it. See, I could try it again if you really wanted to see that. I just am not sure that the ends will justify the time. The dome up here, I think that the dome, I like the idea of it being iron blocks due to this being a decoration for an iron farm. However, I am not a fan of how monochromatic it is. I think that changing it to red terracotta and normal terracotta, and I think that's exposed copper. Actually, I'm holding a piece. Yep, exposed copper, sweet. I think that changing the palette to that would marginally improve the aesthetic of the dome. I still like the shape of it all, and I find it really interesting that it's an even number thick and an odd number wide. It's a very irregular dome, but I still find it very appealing. However, I think that I'm going to call it quits on this unless there are more suggestions, and I would love to hear them if there are more. Genuinely, I struggle to find ideas sometimes, and your comments and feedback always help me figure out stuffs. If you have any ideas of what to put in that red circle, I would love to hear it, because I'm struggling on a window, but I could always give it a second go if that's the consensus. But for now, I would love to hop onto the SMP because there's something really cool that I would like to show you. I don't have any segue, so this is my transition. This is Wavetech's main storage. It's a huge pile of technical stuffs piled on top of each other, and it's been here far longer than I've been playing on the server. However, with the update to 1.18, we decided to renovate the main storage into something a little more intuitive. If only we didn't sacrifice Australia's finest redstone engineer to Harold.
He demands flesh.
Maybe we could have had some help making a new one. Luckily, before his untimely passing, Cubic designed a fantastic new storage system for us. And today, after months and months of planning, we can finally start work on the best storage system in Minecraft. And there you have it, ladies and gents, the first few steps at Wavetech's new main storage. Now, apart from that little time lapse that you just saw, I'm not going to show any more progress on this until it is completely done. And that is because Cubic Meter has been planning this for I don't even want to know how many months, and it would be fantastic to see him get the kudos he deserves for planning out such an incredible storage system. So his channel will be linked in the description. He'll be making a video on this eventually, I'm sure of it. I'm sure many of you already know who Cubic Meter is and are subscribed to him, but feel free to check out his channel and see the thought process behind designing such an incredible storage system. But apart from that, ladies and gents, let's get into today's questions. Today's first question comes from Titus Shirley, sup man, asking if I'm going to be doing the hardcore series. The simple answer is yes. I've been planning out episodes and hope to start recording videos at the start of July. I have a kind of fun twist planned for this series, so feel free to stick around to be at the start of a, hopefully, very long series. Today's second question is from Eagle, asking how easy it is for me to picture my builds prior to construction. The answer is almost all the time. Now, that doesn't mean my mental image is necessarily good, or that I don't deviate from the idea as the build progresses. But most of the time I make a build in Minecraft, I have a pretty solid mental image of how it'll turn out. I think that's why this iron farm decoration threw me for such a spin. Since it was a totally different decoration than the first iron farm deco, I think that's why I built it in stages without a solid end in mind. I got a lot of questions on this last video, so I thought I'd answer 3 questions this time. The last one being from Slap the Duck, asking what my other favorite games are besides Minecraft. To be honest, I mainly play Minecraft, but I'm also an avid Destiny 2 player. I don't even want to begin to tell you how many hours I've clocked in this game. But suffice to say that if I'm ever running late with a video, you can probably blame Destiny 2. And as always, everyone, if you want to have one of your questions featured in a video, feel free to drop a comment down below, and there's a good chance that I'll bookmark it for the following week's video. And as always, I post every Monday at noon, so feel free to subscribe to see what I make in the future. It's that time again, everybody. Oh, what? I've gotten this one before. Oh, come on, you call yourself a random goodbye generator. I've had this twice now. I shouldn't get the same one twice. Why do I have it twice?